Oh, so let's repeat all that.
Welcome to the show, Fred, guitar enthusiast, rock and roller,
Yeah,
funketeer, blues scholar. What else can we say?
I like Funketeer. That
Funketeer
sounds
is
really
good.
nice.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely have the groove in your veins. I've seen you in action. Okay, my first question to you: when did
Mhm.
you first have contact with a guitar, like in your life? Hi, I'm Eliane, and this is Tales from the Fretboard podcast. Unique guitar stories from everyday guitar heroes.
First time was high school.
High school.
Yeah, it was high school, but I didn't play. We were in a high school talent show and we were lip syncing Boogie Nights as a group of us. And
That's
then
awesome.
someone had brought a guitar and said, "Hey, hold this."
And then
And so
did you feel like, okay, I could do this? Was it like the first time you're like, oh, I can see myself as a guitarist?
it felt good. It felt more natural. So my mom played music and she's played piano and stuff. She tried to teach us, but it just didn't feel as natural. But holding an instrument, holding something, and I could walk around, it felt more natural. But
Yeah. I think
yes,
in the way piano, it's a little more exposed, right? Because guitar, I always feel like it's like a shield. You can like, oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
right
just
behind it.
and it's a weapon at the same time, right? So you can hide behind it or shoot. Yeah. Piano's like
Yeah,
you're out in the open. It's okay now. I surrender because my hands are.
yeah. You're stuck.
Yeah. So then but that was like then you didn't have a guitar then. So you just
No,
yeah.
and I guess it wasn't until so that was 1995. So 2009,
Wow.
I decided I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and my mom had a guitar that she didn't play. She tried and failed and said, "I give up," and
Wow.
gave it to me.
So you think if it wasn't for that guitar that to get to your hands, you would have waited or were you ready then?
I was ready. I asked for one,
Oh,
and it was just ironic that she had one.
okay. Cool. And
Here,
and
take this
what
one.
did you, it was it something that you've been thinking about it for a while or was it some you saw somebody play that you're like, "You know what? This is it. I need to do this."
That's a good question.
Do you
I
remember what?
I don't remember exactly. There was something. I know there was some sort of encounter, and it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do that. It sounds good, and
Maybe a
I
live
should.
show. Usually go
Yeah,
to a live show, you're
actually,
like, "Oh, I need to go home and practice." Or if I don't, I need to go buy a guitar, you know?
it probably was a live show because my wife is a hippie,
It's good.
and she likes like hippie jammy type music. So of
Yeah.
course, therefore, I have to like hippie jammy type music because
Like
it's all that plays in the house.
it's dead music.
Yes.
That's the way, right? It's like the jam bands like really get you like I think it makes it possible because they're having such a great time on stage and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to have that time." It's like a party. It's like it's not like classical music, so that has that all that the seriousness to it. It's, oh, we're jamming, man.
Making it up and
Yeah.
having a good
I think it makes
time.
it more accessible to the people who never played or like to think, "Oh, I wanna give it a shot."
Yeah.
Less
Um,
intimidating, yeah. And
yeah.
okay,
And
go ahead.
oh,
No.
I guess in college, I'd seen people just sitting in the grass playing, and I work at a university, and I walk by the School of Music a lot, and I park so that I have to walk by it because I don't know, it's just something to walk by, even if they're just warming up and going through scales. It's just something about hearing music in the background. It's music, even if it's warm up, it's still musical.
Yeah. I think it's
And
great
so,
because it's encouraging, right? And it's I like that scene, I could see it, like, walking through a campus and I seen people and seeing, like, their commitment to music, and that's I
yeah,
think that's what is inspiring
yeah,
part is
yeah,
because you're like, oh, and it's something that is intimate because only you can have that with your whatever instrument you play, right? You can like you can
right.
go to a school or you can go get instruction and everything, but that link it's only you and your craft, right? Like
Mhm.
that commitment of, I know you're very committed because you have, we've been through many stories and many different settings and playing and everything. But that's one thing
A lot of good time.
yeah, that I admire in you is like the commitment to be, to have a schedule and have a plan, because I'm the same way. Like for studying music, it was always like, no, I need now I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do the other thing. But I think it's great because it really keeps it alive, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I guess you're pretty inspiring, and you had the ultimate commitment
Yeah,
for
I'm still at it, right?
Yeah, yeah, clearly it worked out for you, so I have another guest.
Oh, hello. Oh,
Yeah,
it's a cat. What's her
yes.
name or his name?
That's
Charlotte.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's like the feisty one in the house.
she is.
Yeah.
Is she? Is she? Does she trouble the dogs? Yeah, she.
No, actually, we have 2 cats and 2 dogs,
They get
and the 2
along.
cats absolutely adore the dogs.
Oh wow, that is
They
cool.
follow them around, and then they love on them, and
And the
yeah.
dogs don't mind.
No,
No, it's
they
like
just take it.
somebody. It's just one more person scratching my back.
Exactly.
Nice. And do they like the music too? I think animals in general, but tell me.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Yeah. I think for them, I guess it's a way for them to just be assured that we're here.
yeah, yeah. So they're
Yeah,
so not
yeah.
alone. Okay, so you told me a story. The guitar, the first, your first guitar, your mom gave it to you, right?
Mhm.
And then and then did you take lessons, right, or you start teaching yourself online? Because 1995, and no, we didn't have a ton of YouTube. You didn't even have YouTube yet. No, you said 2009 we had YouTube.
2009. Mhm.
Yeah. So did you start looking it up, or you went to the school, to the
So I have, and I'm looking at it right now. I have I guess it was a package to self-learn. It was Learn and Master Guitar.
okay.
And it's really well organized. It's a fantastic package, but you can
Was it
only
the
get so far.
DVDs,
It's DVDs, it's
CDs, and
books,
uh,
you've
I-
got
is
printouts.
that that same one that Sharon used to do? Remember she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, that's where we met.
that okay.
So part
Yeah.
of it, they had a platform online. It was a chat space.
Hmm.
And then they also had I guess it was every like either Tuesday or Wednesday. It was a live lesson where you could
Oh
ask
wow.
questions and stuff. And I did that for a year, and it was some things worked out, like some really simple things worked out, and then the book knowledge really worked out because I don't have any issues with that. But yeah, it just wasn't coming together. And I
I'm curious because since you, if you didn't, if it was something new to you, as far as like having the right grip and finding the right angles and stuff, I feel like that sort of thing when you're starting out is really helpful to be in person, because just in the same room, like body language, you could do that on a video as well, but the nuances, sometimes people like, okay, you gotta curve a little more, make sure your elbow is out, like stuff like that,
yeah,
that will help. It's trying to do a bar chord, and it's really, sometimes it's, oh, it's so painful to
it hurts
try to
so bad.
no, to communicate on in the Zoom. If you never, if somebody never done it, tricky. But if you have some foundation there, like, then a lot of stuff is good online.
Yeah,
But
there's good. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff too.
yeah.
But I got to a point where and I realized I should have just started with a teacher. So I went to the New York City Guitar School and signed up, and you were my first teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So cool. And then when that time was it, the did you go to the absolute beginners, or
I started with, yeah.
oh
I went
yeah,
through all the
because you
courses. Yeah,
wanted to make sure that you didn't have any
mhm,
gaps or anything, right?
yeah,
Ah,
yeah, yeah.
but
And
it's helpful to have some kind, because like at that point you had already read about theory and you knew some chords, and but then
yeah,
actually doing it with a group is different. Yeah.
but that's when it came together, and almost immediately, just little things that you had suggested, little I wouldn't call them hacks, but little shortcuts to go from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
I guess those little transitions were extremely helpful. And probably the thing that helped me the most was how to practice,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
and what to focus on in practice.
That's one of the things because people usually we go, "Oh, I need to practice. I need to practice more. Oh, I just
Mhm.
needs to sit there and practice." But we don't until you are in the process, immersed in that routine or that you have to learn about yourself too. Learn how practice is effective to you and also learn how to zoom in little things and just work through it so then you can move. But I think at first because it's like an overwhelming task because let's say I need to do I want to learn the song, I just gotta practice. But it what exactly, because you can practice transitioning from first chord to second chord. Can you do that? But then no, we go when chord seven or the middle of the song, you still have all those problems. So it's like it's a learning process. Like to practice is a learning process. Learning how
Yeah, you have
to
to learn
practice,
how to practice.
right?
That's
It's
right.
but it's you would never know until you start doing it because you can read about it, but you have to, yeah,
Yeah, it's not the same. You have to do it. You have to be with somebody that can guide you, and
yeah.
that's where you came in,
I think
and,
yeah, it's so valuable. Oh,
yeah.
I do need to plug my. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and in person is good too because I was saying like the body language and just and then you like sync up to each other.
The
Somehow there's
timing,
something that happens that people
yeah,
just sync up. It's good. Yeah.
yeah. The timing was really helpful too, and I think one of the things, you I guess after the first class or sometime during that first class with you, you had mentioned happy hour guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And that just opened everything up for me because it was a chance to apply those things so that I wasn't just sitting here in this space,
Right.
this exact
This
space,
is yeah.
doing the same thing over and over. It mixed it up
And
and
this just brought your knowledge, your learning into a real life situation, which is to me, what is it? Real life. It's like play an entire song in real time without stopping, right? And we don't do that in practice, not usually. And that's why I created a happy hour because I was like, I'm teaching all these things, and then people are so excited about it. It's such a cool song, or new chords. Now you have three chords, you have four chords, you can play handful of songs. And but what are the chances that you actually going to go home and play the entire song? So to have that environment where everybody's strumming together to a song, like that was super cool, and still is. I still see the same reactions from
yeah,
10 years ago and then people are like, I'm so thankful we have this space because it's
right,
I think it's
right.
when it becomes real. Like the song is
It's
alive,
you
you
feel
know.
like you can play.
Yeah,
You feel like you can play and you're connecting with other people and the music, and yeah, it's what it's about.
and it's so cool.
It's magical.
Yeah,
You also There's a lesson that I learned quickly that, and it ties in with what you just said about only playing little pieces. It's exhausting. It's physical. A 3-minute song, you don't think that's not that long. It's not like a jam band song, you know? It's very physical, and to do all those changes in time and to play the entire song, even if you're not doing anything overly complex,
right.
it's tiring.
It's like building some endurance to that too because
Mhm.
once you have a certain level of muscle memory, let's say a very basic level for just let's say just alternate strum or whatever, and that you can
Mhm.
do that without thinking, right? Because the struggle is when you're like making it happen, like you're looking, it's like you're forcing it a little bit because you still don't have it, let's say something new,
Mhm.
or even something
Mhm.
simple that you never done before, and then you still, so that is taking so much effort, mental and physical, right? But once
Right.
that sticks, and then you can like, okay, oh, A, I can do A to D, I can do, okay, I can do A to D, E, and then it becomes easy, right? Because you're not watching it, like you, it's just
Mhm.
happening automatically, and then it's just a matter of like regrouping and okay, catch my breath, let me keep it going, but then it becomes fun. That's when it's fun. It's maybe silly example, but maybe once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you're not
Mhm.
really thinking of the pedaling anymore. You're just, now you can enjoy the view and just, but at first you really have, you need to balance because you're gonna fall, and
Yeah.
it's just like that.
Yeah.
Scab knees and all of that.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
thing.
It's I guess it's like anything any other thing that you're learning, except there's also this mental, this cognitive piece to it to make sure that you know what it is you're doing. And but there's a lot of physical, and both fine physical motor tasks and more, I guess, larger but rhythmic type tasks. But yeah, that's when it all kind of connected with me, I think.
Nice.
Happy
Yeah.
hour.
So what, at that point, or in the beginning stages, what was something that was perhaps like the hardest thing? Some people is like bar chords or slide or whatever. What was something that was like, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna ever get this.
So the first big thing like that was actually strumming. Just doing anything other than single strums or just all down strums. And yeah, I that was where I got frustrated with trying to do it on my own because that was something that was completely left out. It was like, oh, you'll just figure that part out. Oh, you'll listen to it and it'll come together. No, it doesn't. And that's where I think
Yeah,
in class it was helpful spelling out the
spelling
strums, and
out.
then it clicked. It made sense. You knew what parts of the beat you could connect with, and then you always had a home base, and then from there you could start to work in more complicated things.
I think that has to do a lot of what type of learner we are, because me too, if I don't see something spelled out and I know where it belongs, it's very hard to just do. I can compare, for me, it was like learning how to speak English, for example. I had to, of course, a lot of it was like mimicking and copying phrases, but I was never 100% comfortable unless I knew how to write it.
Uh,
you know
yeah,
because,
yeah.
and then, oh, and still you're like, oh, that's not the sound, this vowel is a different sound or whatever, but then there's more to it. Of course, there's always more to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I say that because I know people that do better, not, no, like not reading, just
Hmm.
copying it, and I
Hmm.
guess that's the type, is how you learn, right? Like how you assimilate.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I see,
Yeah.
like, to me, I like to teach how it's made, how the beat's made. And so you understand it on paper. And then now we can detach from paper. And it's just so we cover our bases. And then now we can just, we can still, like, you can learn how to read. You can know exactly what it means on paper. Still, to make it sound like you hear on the recording or how
Hmm.
it's intended to, it's still, there's a layer of magic to it that it's never going to be revealed to any of us, you know. But it's just right because it turns into something else, the
Yeah, it
actual
does.
sound of it, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
really, this is the same thing.
It's one of the things that I mentioned to other players whenever I come in contact with other players, and you've always talked about it, and it's like the dynamics on how you express what you're playing. You could all be playing the same thing, but then how you express it with varying the dynamics can make it sound completely different,
Right.
more expressive or more percussive or lighter, and
There's so
it.
much to it because you learn a pattern, like you look up a song, oh, okay, it's down, up, down, up. But okay, first of all, how long is each one, right?
Mhm.
So there's that. And even if you do know that, you hear no. It's all the nuances of the accent. the accents or the attack or the timbre of this. And there's
Mhm.
so and now part of it is muted and the other it's just what there's so
Yeah.
many,
Yeah.
there's so much finesse that goes into each any player sound that if you want to
Mhm.
copy that, you really have to consider all those things because you can't just, oh, it's down up. Wait, that doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a swing feel with it starts like the accent is like it's almost inaudible until you get to the third. All these complex layers of playing. That's what it makes fun. I think that's what makes it fun for me to still be doing this and also still be learning things from new people that inspire me or even older. Like every time I'll write a chart or something, I have to listen and I'll, oh wait, oh yeah, that's what they're doing. And like being able to have yet a fresher perspective on something that maybe I played like a million times, but now I hear, oh, now I can hear better and I can see or like in my mind, like I write it, with more detail because you just understand it better, and that brings your level of satisfaction up.
It does. I guess you've probably had a lot of those moments over your career, and I've only been playing for a short part of my life, but I've had moments where I've thought, "Oh man, that's you mean I can do this just this slightly different way, and it opens up this new sound that I've never made before, and it sounds cool."
Yeah, yeah. I think it's great. That's why music is amazing to me because you're never gonna master it. So it's a blessing because right, because it keeps you engaged forever.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. You'll get better at it, at understanding it, and hopefully better at playing it. But it's you can't say I mastered it because that would be unfair to
right,
to
yeah.
music itself. It's
It's
always
it's not
it's
necessarily
ever
music.
evolving. Yeah. And the fretboard alone, it's there's so many ways to look at it, so many perspectives you can have. So you can
Mhm.
learn it a certain way, but then you start to play. Wait, how were they thinking when they wrote this line? Oh, they came from a complete different place. And then you're like, okay, now it makes sense. It's like a magic puzzle that is always like reshifting. You feel
Mhm.
like that too?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, actually, so it's funny is that at the start of the year, usually I try to set all these different goals and things I'm gonna work on, and I usually overdo it. I usually kind of set too many, but I was working on something, and to connect it back to that Learn and Master course that I was working on that
Mhm.
I got frustrated with, there was this little sliding thing that was in the course, and it was never really explained why you did it. It was just like, oh, and you can do this. And then I picked up this other resource at some point, and I was working on it, and it was just something simple about connecting notes and sliding to the next line. The way it was explained in this other thing, it connected that, and I was, oh, that sort of framework explained what that was, and now it makes sense because I can use it.
Right.
And yeah, it just having that little bit of extra sort of perspective
Right.
from somebody else made
I
a big
think
difference.
it's helpful to hear from different people because sometimes the language alone, like the way somebody might tell you something, you're like, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. That's all you have to do. But then you might hear from somebody else and it's, I don't get it. How? But how? I remember
Yeah,
being stuck. I was like learning things and could never find the answer because sometimes you're so stuck in one aspect and you're like, and then one magical day people say, and you see somebody doing it and say, it's like, oh, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But
right.
you never, until you start digging, you never, you're never gonna know. Yeah. But okay. So do you have a practice routine at the moment?
At the moment, I don't. My practice routine is
Go practice.
go work on something. I
Okay.
guess this week I've been trying to think of just work on songs, and so right now I can never remember songs. I had a cousin visit, and she was staying with us, and she was like, "Oh, so you'll play me something?" And I'm like,
Yeah, I know. It's like me too. I know so many songs and like when I'm teaching, I because let's say, oh, today we're gonna learn this chord or whatever or this technique. And then I can have I have like my archive. Let's say, oh, this song, that song, this and that. And then to serve that purpose. But somebody,
Sure.
what do I play? I don't know. I don't know. Like it's the blank. So I have to
Yeah,
make a list of stuff that okay, yeah, oh yeah, I can do this. Do you have
yeah, yeah.
lists? Because in Ultimate Guitar or some of those like songs there, you can have your own a list of your own.
I have like a couple whiteboards
Or you
and
can
songs
yeah,
that I really want to play.
yeah.
And then, but no, this week I was just thinking, I just want to keep it simple. And so I wanted to play CCR. I started off with Fortunate Son.
That is a great groove. I love that.
Yeah.
How so that song, I used to play that song in a band, in a cover band. It was an all girl cover band in Arizona. Don't ask me, that's a long
Wow,
story.
very specific.
But it was a lot. I always loved playing that song because I was doing like a groove that is like a 16 note feel to it.
Hmm.
Is that how you play it? Because you could play as eight notes, but
Right.
I always misses something if you do that.
Yeah, I think the example that I went off of, it was an eighth note feel, but it was a lot of upstrums and skipping and scratching and stuff to fill in those gaps. But
But
yeah,
do you find yourself doing like moving your hand to 16 notes?
I find that I'm moving other parts of my body to 16 notes. So, and then,
Okay, that's advanced. That's advanced. Every all the parts are moving, but this one's keeping eight notes.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
It's a great
but yeah,
song.
that was that, and it's not too many parts, and you can make it as complicated as you want.
Yeah,
Even the fills are not that difficult with that song, but they're cool. They're really cool.
they're super cool.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and
It,
then I moved on to Proud Mary because I was
okay.
thinking, oh, wait a minute, what if I did this song because it's got some other chords I can throw in,
Yeah, that
and
intro is so cool.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And
yeah.
what?
Didn't you play Proud Mary in Happy Hour? Wasn't that a happy
Yeah,
or
it is still play. We still play it. Yeah, it's yeah. It's always a fun song to play on guitar. My gosh, it's great. Okay, practice routine. Yeah. And finger style up or pick. What's your mostly? Do you play electric or acoustic or both? Or
mostly electric? Yeah, um, yeah, mostly. I have to. I think about once a week I have to give the acoustic some love.
when you go to the acoustic, do you still use the pick or you do finger style?
So this year I've been using almost exclusively the pick. I thought to revisit fingerstyle. So I used to have all these complex practice routines because that was your original question was about practice routines.
Yeah.
So every year it's been different.
Okay.
And I just thought I just want to keep my life simple this year.
Yeah. That's good
Um,
plan. And do you use backing tracks?
I do. I've purchased some. I don't use those for some reason.
You
But when
purchased what like specific things because but do you also find them on YouTube? Because I don't know if there's
yeah,
lately I've been finding a ton.
there's a bunch of good ones on YouTube.
Hmm.
But I think maybe years ago, I felt like this person put in the time and energy to make this.
To make it
I
something
felt like
that
I should
sounds
pay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should pay for it.
Yeah.
And so I used to buy them, and I have a bunch of paid files where I felt like I should support this person
Yeah.
because
Definitely.
they've made this thing that I really enjoy. And now I just go to YouTube.
I know. Do you do blues tracks or does vary or vary? Like do you have a
Uh,
like just chord progressions or songs like or some it depends on what you're in the mood for.
yeah, I think this year it's been mostly just chords, just play with this track, and then I can work on the fills at different points. Last year, it was a lot of blues tracks. It was a lot of slow blues tracks and slow rock progressions, and then I tried some slow R&B type soul, neo soul type
Oh
progressions, and
yeah, that is full of caged. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's funny you say that because I realized I can't do this. So then I pulled out a resource to try to work on caged.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I enjoy that style too. Lot of little slides and little trills. Yeah, like yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you doing with the cage stuff? Do you?
I'm failing gloriously.
It's what is hard about it?
So I guess maybe I didn't get that far. So the first part, I was just trying to make sure I had a grasp of the shapes as they moved up the neck.
Yeah.
And then I was going to go off of the shapes, and then you do the shape, and then you do a scale. Um, and I had a plan. I was going to work my way to um, modes,
Okay.
but use Cage to better understand the fretboard. And then all this was supposed to be for fretboard fluency. This was last year.
R-
This was last year's plan.
Yeah.
And so I realized the speed just and speed was never the goal. It was just I was trying to find these shapes that I'd never worked on, like these alternate shapes as you move up the neck for the different caged
Right.
patterns um, and I was doing it. It was part of my regular practice routine, just a couple minutes, just work through the shapes. And then I guess after some time, I just gave up on that strategy.
Yeah.
And
I think
yeah,
the trouble people have with caged in general is find good use for it because oh, I know the shape, but when am I ever going to use this and
yeah,
why? There are definitely good uses for certain shapes, but it's if you understand what the function is. Because if you want to just strum a song and sing, some of the shapes are not going to be meant for that because you're not going to have the low end or it's just out of the it's uncomfortable. But if you're okay, I can use the shape to complement somebody else or another instrument or another guitar, and then oh, that makes sense because then it's like easy. Because I think the thing on anything that we learn on guitar, if it's not serving a purpose and if it's not easy to play, why would you do it?
yeah.
It's supposed to be enjoyable, no? Not just, oh, because I know the shape, that's another C and whatever. But yeah, but what does it serve a purpose? So
And
that's that the thing. Like people not most of the time you're gonna if you're gonna play a song that's G to C or to D, it's going to be on open G, open D, open, and then you're like,
mhm,
okay, but now if you see yourself, okay, I'm doing some guitar work on top of that. It's not you're not the main accompaniment, right? Like now you can complement that. Then it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. Sounds
yeah.
cool. I think it's useful, but it's like the way you look at it too, because some of it's like, oh, you have to break up the shapes into portions, the high and the low, and then you choose one of them because it's
Right.
gonna make sense in that situation, you know.
But
But
you have so many other shapes that you can use, so you could still complement and never even go into some of those shapes.
but what they're helpful for too, not it's to visualize the fretboard because like you say, like you can then you can connect scales, you can
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, even for capo use, because you're like, oh, I know the cage. I'm not gonna play this impossible G shape here. I'm gonna put a capo here and I can make a G shape.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it helps to connect dots, definitely. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point.
And okay.
Uh,
But yeah, go ahead.
I at some point last year, and I thought maybe I'd carry it into this year. I started the year working on it, and then I gave it up. But I still have this goal to be fluent with slide guitar.
Oh,
And so I was working on that. And then also in the spirit of blues, you play with your fingers a lot and you finger pick. And I was doing that and then I just stopped
the
at some point.
slide. Do you have a favorite player, slide player?
I have a few. So I like Derek Trucks. I like Warren Haynes.
Mm.
And I think he tends to play slide in standard tunings more. Derek Trucks tends to play G and
But
E.
I've seen Derek Trucks playing standard too. I
Mhm.
guess maybe both. I mean, I'm not an expert
Right.
in his playing, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. I love that too. I've
Yeah.
been getting into slide too a lot. Usually, I like to do it in standard, just to challenge myself as well,
Mhm.
to go around and play scales or find your melodies around. It's fun. Do you use
Works. It,
the? Do you have a favorite finger? What finger do you use the slide on?
I I use this one because I thought I'd try this one, and I have a slide that fits my little finger,
So you
and I thought, oh, then I can use the others for stuff. But no, I it's just more comfortable here.
the ring finger.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the one I do too. Yeah, because I still you can still do some stuff with the other thing. Like you can do a
yeah.
power chord with pointer and pinky,
Hmm.
if and then at least.
But I think for me at least, I want it to sound clean, and I know that's not always going to happen with slide, but I probably have worked more on right and left hand dampening techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I have my pinky and these fingers, I have more fingers around to dampen the other
Yeah, the
strings.
pinky can be the mute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice. Do you play like scales or to find something cool to do is find the melody and just chase the melody? Like it could be like even like instead of the singer or to like the singer, like
Hmm. Hmm.
just copy it.
No, because I think I've spent more time just trying to get used to having this thing on my finger
Yeah.
and playing something with it that doesn't sound like all the strings just going haywire.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it never got to a point where it's musical. It's more of an exercise. It'll happen
It,
at
it
some
it
point.
will happen. Yeah. Maybe that's the challenge now, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah. How about performing? Is that okay? My question is, what was I? Because I know you performed in many of our ensembles, and have you ever done open mics too, or mostly just us?
No, no.
And besides
Uh,
that, the high school thing was it
right.
mostly edge
It's been exclusively Edge.
exclusively? Okay, from all those performances, what was like your proudest moment?
I think I don't know. I was that first one that we did at
Funkadelic,
Funkadelic
yeah.
because I had never done anything like that, and so to be able to get up on a stage in front of a room of people and play something, I felt like that was quite the
A
accomplishment. I
comp.
still, from time to time, go back and watch that.
Oh, cool! Oh my
Yeah,
god, that was such a cool one. I liked it,
yeah,
especially because we we didn't even have singers. It was just like making
right.
the music with our
Yeah,
guitars. Yeah, people reacted so nicely there. Like they really
yeah.
were really into it. Yeah, I have to go.
It was a great experience. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Nice. And
Um,
was it the scare that was that the scariest too?
being in front of people, no, because I think so I didn't have it's a different kind of nerves.
Hmm.
It was just more the nerves, being nervous about remembering what to play. Care less what people thought
Being
of it.
afraid to forget, right?
Yeah, yeah. Didn't want to forget, and not so much for the audience, but more for the other Edge members so that I didn't ruin their experience. But yeah, I don't get nerves getting in front of people. That happened a long time ago.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, and so I, my undergrad, my bachelor's degree is in health education, and I guess if you can get in front of people in the Bible Belt of the United States and talk about sex ed,
You can, yeah, that's a pretty good test.
then yeah.
Yeah,
So
that that seems more scary than playing the guitar.
that did it for me. Yes, that did
Oh,
it for me. So then after that, I could talk about anything in front of people or do anything in front of people. It was fine.
oh. Yeah, but because music usually people get so in their heads as far as oh you think that all attention is on you and your playing and the notes that you're gonna get wrong. Then you're so scared, right? But I don't know. I think, and I hope that the more people do play with other people, the less the concern is about ourselves, and more just let's make sure that the actual music is being
Hmm.
served well. If that means I'm going to reinforce certain things so the music's there, or like just being more about the whole what's being played and listening then. But it's hard to make that transition like at first, because you're so like you learn the song and then you memorize it, and in your head I have to do this part and this part and that part is only one tiny part of the whole thing, right? So that's not, it's super important, but it's more important to be in tune to what's going on at the moment, because
Hmm.
you get there and the sound is different, everything is different, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like you sounded at home for sure. And then
Right.
now it's the drums and the people, and it's different beast altogether. Do you think like it has, with those experiences, has it become more of an, did it normalize more for you?
I think so. I think I've heard so that whole piece you just talked about with serving the song and the music and listening. I think I've heard that enough times in all of the ensembles that eventually you start to understand it as a player, and it makes a complete difference in the experience. And so knowing that, I guess, yeah, it normalized understanding when to play softer or when to listen to cues from the other members or just to enjoy them because they play and you want to be able to enjoy what they're saying with their instrument as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think people don't realize, but everybody there is helping each other so much, because
mhm.
let's say we need to play a groove that is a certain way, but if one person is unsure, and in our case 12 other people are doing are accenting that beat, it helps that person. And but the thing is, we are all going to be unsure at a certain point. There's always going to be a point, and it might be a brief moment, but you have to ensure we need to keep it going, right? It helps everybody. Let's say you blank out a few measures, but you come back on it, and then and now you're really you are pulling together for us, like
Yeah.
you're pulling us together, because now we see, and even like just the body language, like, oh, okay, and then everybody gets it, and then it's a wild thing, man. I think it's like being in a
Yeah.
group like that, but it always comes together, like it's that's the beauty of it. Sometimes we're like, I don't know, week one, week two, or oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
But the moment,
Yeah.
I think that there's always that moment when we are able to play the song from beginning to end, and even if it's at 75% of the speed or whatever, but we actually
You
tackled it.
made it.
You know? And I know that moment because we all look at each other, and I've seen you do this so many times. We actually
Oh,
played the
yeah.
entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That whether that happens in rehearsal or on stage, it makes it fun.
It makes it fun.
And it gives you a moment where you can connect with the other people that,
Yeah, because it's we get it. Now we get it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know your pain, my pain,
yeah,
and that's and I know your joy also, and my joy. Yeah,
yeah.
no,
It
it's a
it
beautiful
becomes
thing.
an inside joke on stage, which I think, having been to shows with Pam, like I said, she's a hippie and she likes these jam bands and they have all these little inside jokes and all these little crowd little things that they do. And if you've been to the shows, or if you can tell when the band is talking about something and it's an inside joke, and it makes it that much more fun of an experience when, because I think the crowd sees it. I think the people in the audience see it.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think it helps for their enjoyment too, because they see that, oh, they've obviously connected and gelled.
yeah, yeah, and that's the main thing. Playing together, if we're connecting, then everybody's happy. No one gets hurt. You know? But it's so that's the main. I think that's the main accomplishment that I always try to inspire or like just to make it to help it happen. And me too. If I'm playing with anybody, I my priority is not it's not even like knowing the song well, is let's connect, and then
Mhm.
I'll know the song well. Because it comes to you too. Like if you know a part, you practice, but then you're unsure, right? Or you're like scared that you're not going to remember that. Because who can't, like, no, who's to say that you are going to remember that? You don't know. Only when it
Mhm.
happens. But to trust that is going to happen, it's already, it's all, it's like a winning step, because it, there are many more chances, a lot more chance that it will happen because you are relaxed and you trust that it's going to happen. It's just
Have you been on stage where you forgot something or you had to
oh yeah, many times, every time. But what happens is you get better at just keep going, and you get better at, if it was going to be a mistake, it's not anymore, because you covered it,
Mhm.
you just kept it going. Or sometimes you just sit out for a measure or two and then you come back. It
Yeah.
happens, but I think the most, it's more important that that we are present and engaged with the musicians on stage, or if there's only you with your own music or your own tempo. I believe a lot in tempo. If you are connected to tempo, everything's going to be okay. But
Mhm.
the problem with that is that when you have several people on stage and everybody has their own tempo, that is that, but there is a common tempo that we need to plug into, and that only happens if you're open and listening to each other,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
watching. Sometimes you
Yeah,
can't hear. That is the
that's true.
truth. Sometimes the drums are too loud, or
Mhm.
you hear the bass here, or you can't even hear yourself. So you definitely need to watch.
Mhm.
You have to listen to with your eyes and, and mind and all of it, and ears, if it can be. But yeah, it's great. I love it.
It's fantastic. It's a world that again, to go back to my mom, she tried to get, I have two other brothers, and she tried to get us all to play music at a young age. And we had instruments. We had the piano and a keyboard in the house, and we didn't. I have a brother who can sing, and he tried to sing with a group once, and that didn't work out. Funny story, one of the guys that he was trying to sing with, I think eventually had done some work with Jodeci, because Jodeci's the band, the R&B band, they're from Charlotte,
Okay.
and that's where I'm from, that area. So yeah, small world, but yeah, it didn't work out.
But does he still sing with people or just by himself? Yeah.
No, he hasn't done anything like
Yeah.
that for a long time. And he's older. I'm the youngest. I think I'm the only one that kind of picked up an instrument, even if it was later in life and not the piano.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what do you say? What would you say to people who are hesitant because they want to start? They like an instrument or they like the guitar, and but they think they're too old to start.
there's really no being too old. You're not gonna, I'm not gonna say you're not gonna become a rock star, because you could, even if you started later in life, but you get a teacher, and I would try to go at it alone. There's just too much. It's overwhelming. Get a teacher, a good patient teacher, and like you,
Like me.
and someone who
Yeah.
will, if you can teach adults and you can teach children,
Yeah.
that's a good sign that you're patient.
Yeah.
You can put
True.
up with adults and then you can tolerate children.
Yeah.
Um,
No, yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's true. I think I also think there's no, it's not too old, there's no too old to start. It's because also you can be, you can have a lot of enjoyment from playing a few chords and just
Mhm.
playing songs that you enjoy, and right, and this doesn't have to be anything like a monster task or anything, like it could be. So I totally agree with you there. Now, the other day I saw an article that said, oh, this is why it's so hard to start as an adult, but it's one of those things that they were just trying to sell you something else, and then they made up the article. And then there was a lot of comments like, no, I'm an adult and I started and I'm fine, I'm doing fine. And then other teachers and me too, like saying, I have a lot of students that started later in life and they're loving it. So there's no, yeah,
Yeah. Whatever the reason is, adults tend to, we have
fear. Yeah.
fear of failure. We don't want to start something and then not be able to do it. And I think you just have to do it. And there's always an arrangement. You don't have to play it. If you want to learn Led Zeppelin, you don't have to play it Jimmy Page style. You can have an arrangement and it still sounds good.
Yeah,
Still sounds better than someone who can't play, right?
exactly. Well,
So,
and you can
yeah,
play like you play. Like you don't have to play like he plays. You play like
that's
you
right.
play.
That's right. You can become your own player.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, I don't. I think it's just get over your fear, and then adults can jump in and play. Yeah.
absolutely. I agree. I am proud of you, how
Thank you.
committed you are to your guitar and your music. I hope you come to jam with us soon.